Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to dive into two particular concealers from the drugstore space, the new 16-hour Camo concealer from e.l.f. and the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop concealer. So if that is something you're interested in watching, then you're in the right place. We're about to get into it.
I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf.
Alright guys, so here we are yet again talking about two additional drugstore products. Now, I know we've spent a lot of time recently talking about affordable products, and I do have some additional videos coming up in the future discussing some more drugstore and affordable products. I feel like in 2019, the drugstore space is putting forth an effort to put out some additional products, and sometimes that's been a struggle in the past, looking for new and exciting and innovative things in the drugstore, but not in 2019. They've really kind of come out with a bang. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on drugstore products over the course of the next couple of videos, starting with two new concealers. Now, we've already discussed the concealer that Milani launched, and surprisingly, that was a concealer that I actually liked. Now we have two additional concealers. One is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop concealer, and the other is the new e.l.f. 16-hour Camo concealer. Now, if you look at the reviews on the Ulta website, you'll see a lot of people comparing both of these products to the Shape Tape. Of course, that's everybody's ultimate concealer that everything in the world gets compared to. However, I'm not a fan of Shape Tape. Just for me personally, I feel like it's a little too drying. So when I see that comparison, it actually makes me want to back away a little bit. But I figured these two were really popular, so I thought we'd go ahead and dive in. I do want to go ahead and start with the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop. So let's take a look at this product up close so you guys can see what the applicator looks like and the component. Alright guys, so NYX says play hide and sculpt with the NYX Professional Makeup Can't Stop Won't Stop Contour and Concealer. This lightweight liquid won't transfer, has three major complexion musts all covered. You can use the blendable matte formula to camouflage imperfections, brighten up your face, and contour those features to perfection. They do say this is a creamy multitasker that also delivers full coverage with a finish that lasts up to 24 hours. They say to pair this long-wearing concealer with its complimentary Can't Stop Won't Stop full coverage foundation and put your best face forward. Now, of course, this concealer also is coming out in 24 shades, which is a great shade range for a drugstore product. Now, for those of you that will remember, we dove into the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop foundation, and one thing that we found while doing that video, and I'll put that video somewhere up here for those that haven't seen it, is that that foundation was just a L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation in a new bottle. And that was basically because L'Oreal purchased NYX and they just reformulated that formula and put it in a different bottle. It was something that we uncovered during that investigation. So the first thing I did was to see if this concealer was just the L'Oreal Infallible concealer in a different bottle. And I am happy to report that this concealer formulation is specific to NYX. So this is a new formulation. It's not just repackaged, so maybe they learned something after the Can't Stop Won't Stop release. I don't know. Regardless, they are claiming that this is a full coverage concealer and that you're going to be able to get 24 hours worth of wear out of this particular concealer. I always think those 24 hours worth of wear claims are a little crazy because nobody's going to wear a concealer for that long and nobody really cares if it's going to last 24 hours or not. Now, looking at the ingredients for this particular concealer, there is a ton of dimethicones in this concealer, which means means that's going to give it that kind of slip and slide that you feel when you have a foundation that's very dimethicone heavy, etc. This is also going to be a matte finish, so for me, it's something that I should know going into it that I need to really hydrate my under eyes prior to using this particular concealer. Now, this is something that I will say about this concealer. It is very pigment heavy. It really is a full coverage concealer. Another note to self that I do want to put out there is that this concealer did change a little bit on me as far as color is concerned. So what I would do is, if you think that, like, for example, if you look at this and you think that this might be your shade, this is the shade Natural. When this dries down, it's a lot darker than it looks in the tube. Does that mean it's actual oxidation? No, it just means that when it dries is when you see its true color, but a lot of people are out there calling it this oxidizes, but it's just that when it dries down, it's going to be a little bit, probably a shade or two darker than what you see in the tube. So that is a ding for me. I don't necessarily like that because it makes it very, very hard to actually shop for your shade. This does set down to a very matte finish, and it actually sets rather quickly. So when you're working with this concealer, I would absolutely recommend that you work on one eye and then you work on the other eye. Does this crease? It does, unless you set it. Now, if you set it, it tends to not crease as much. I did notice around that 8-9 hour mark that it started to settle into my lines just a little bit, but that's to be expected with a matte concealer. I don't like this concealer for me because it is drying under the eye. It is a matte finish, and for me, it really did just suck all the moisture out from underneath my eye. If you've ever tried the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop foundation, it is also a matte formula, and I feel like this concealer is a good sister product to that foundation. So if you like that foundation and you wouldn't mind that kind of matte finish underneath the eyes, then you actually might really like this concealer. I'll show you guys some application here just so that you can see what it looks like when I actually apply it and pat it out underneath the eye. It really does blend out nice on the face. I would not recommend using a brush with this. I would absolutely recommend using a sponge because the dampness of the sponge is really going to help this formula because, again, it does dry down very quickly and it becomes very matte very quickly, and the dampness of the sponge extends your playtime with this product a little bit and allows you to actually blend it in and get it looking nice and good on the face. Now, a little bit later on in the day, it doesn't look as good as it does when you first apply it. It does start to look really dry. You can start to see a little bit of cracking going on underneath the eye, and I'll show you guys a picture of that here. As the day wore on, you can just feel it. If you've ever worn something that's a little drying underneath your eyes and you know about halfway through the day, you just kind of start getting that tight, dry feeling underneath the eye, and that's what I experienced with this particular concealer. So for me, it's just going to be a no-go. Even though I prepped with eye cream and really hydrated the under eye area, this one was just too drying for me. Now, I do like the amount of pigment that's in this. I do fully support the claim that this is a full coverage concealer. I think that that's absolutely correct. Unfortunately, I just think the formula is a little too drying. Now, if you don't have problems with texture underneath the eye and you're not necessarily worried about whether or not it's a matte drying formula, then you really might like this concealer because, again, the pigment in this is phenomenal and I love the coverage that it gets. Just remember to go a little bit lighter than you think you're going to need to. But overall, at 0.11 fluid ounces and $8.50, this one is going to be a pass for me. Next up is the e.l.f. 16-Hour Camo Concealer. Now, this is also retailing at Ulta. This one only retails, however, for $5. And this is what she looks like. Now, this is claiming 16 hours worth of wear. And I'll give you guys a close-up of the component and the applicator here. Now, e.l.f. is claiming this is their most full coverage, long wearing formula ever. Camouflage those pesky spots and under eye circles with this high coverage, crease resistant 16-hour wear camo concealer. This creamy, dreamy formula glides on to help conceal dark circles and blemishes and can also be used to highlight and contour the face. Now, the one thing I do like about this component is that the wand is one of those big chunky wands, and I do like those applicators. It kind of has a little bit of a well right here that kind of holds product on the tip of the applicator, and I actually like that when it comes to application. Now, one thing I will say about this concealer is she is thick. This is a very thick formula. Now, this is a creamy formula, even though she's very thick, but there is one ingredient in here that gave me hope that this wasn't going to be yet another matte, overly drying concealer, and that is that avocado oil is actually included in this ingredients list. So I had a little bit of hope that this one wasn't going to be as drying as the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop concealer. This is what I discovered using this particular concealer. Number one, it's not as full coverage as the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop. The NYX concealer has a very high concentration of pigment. This also has a high concentration of pigment. I would still put it in the medium to full coverage category. It's just not as much as the NYX. Having said that, it still does a really good job at concealing dark circles. This is also another one that dries down fairly quickly. One thing that you'll notice with this concealer is that if it dries and you have not blended out that product really, really well with a damp beauty blender, you will actually see the demarcation line with this concealer of where it actually dried on your face and the concealer stops and your foundation begins. So one thing I will suggest to you is that you really spend some time blending this out and to remember that less is more with this product, because if you use a ton of it, you're not going to be able to blend it out enough so that you don't see the separation between the concealer and the foundation. So you want to start with a really light layer, blend it out, and then if you feel like you need some additional coverage, then specifically target the area that you feel like you need additional coverage and blend that out. Other than that, do I think this is going to wear for 16 hours? I don't know, because I'm not going to try it for 16 hours. But for a regular, normal, like 9-10 hour day, it actually did fairly good. As far as wear is concerned, I liked the wear of this concealer a little bit better. It did take a little bit longer for it to break down. It took a little bit longer for me to get that dry, tight feeling. And yes, it's too drying for me. So again, we have another concealer that is drying underneath the eyes, and especially once you set it with powder, it really does. I mean, in the beginning, it feels good, it looks beautiful, but a couple of hours in, you just really start to see that dry kind of crackiness happening. And then again, when you start really wearing it and you start hitting that 7, 8, 9 hour, you just feel all of the moisture being sucked out from underneath the eye. So it's just not a comfortable formula for me, again, because it's a matte formula and it's drying. So again, this is going to be another one that I would say if you only need to wear it for 5-6 hours, you don't care that it's a matte finish and that it's going to be a little drying underneath the eye, you might actually really like this one. So I don't know. I was a little bit hopeful that this one wasn't going to be as drying because of the avocado oil. As a matter of fact, when you put this ingredients list up against the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop concealer, they're really, really similar. They're both very dimethicone heavy concealers, the avocado oil being really the only difference between the two. Now, are they identical formulas? No, that would have been the first thing that I told you, is that these are identical formulas, and oh my gosh. But the ingredients are very similar. They're shifted around as far as order is concerned, so there's different amounts in each one, but the ingredients list for the most part is the same. So these two are pretty similar formulas. I don't think this one is quite as drying as this one, and I don't think this one is as full coverage as this one. So I feel like this one's a little bit more drying, but it has a little bit more pigment. This is a little less drying, but it has a little less pigment as well. Both of them are just too matte for me. But for the drugstore space, you guys, I mean, they're trying, they're doing it. These are really, really popular on Ulta, so it may just be me. It may just be that I really just can't do any kind of a matte concealer. I really thought about this, and I really thought about whether or not there's any drugstore concealer out there that's ever going to make me happy. And I was really kind of beating myself up a little bit because I didn't like either one of these concealers. But then I thought to myself as I looked around my concealer collection, that's not really true. The Maybelline Age Rewind, I love this concealer from the drugstore. It's not overly drying, it has great coverage, and it looks beautiful on the skin. I also really love the Kokie Be Bright concealer. This is one of my favorite concealers out there on the market, and this is their Be Bright Illuminating Concealer, so it's not this dry down matte finish concealer, and it just looks stunning underneath the eye. And both of these have great coverage, so the drugstore space can really do wonderful things with concealers. For me personally though, I just don't think that these two are it. Unfortunately for me, guys, I did not like either one of these concealers. I think they're very, very thick. They're very, very matte, and it's just not for me. But again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm always curious to hear your thoughts about these concealers. I am genuinely curious to know if it's just me that doesn't like these really kind of matte, drying concealers, or if it's, you know, a bigger concern out there. I don't know. Both of these are really highly rated on Ulta, so somebody is loving these concealer formulas. Alright guys, well that is it for today. Let me know again down in the comments below what you guys think. As always, if you're new here, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on your way out. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at @EricaApproved. And as always, I hope you guys are very happy and very healthy. And I will see you guys in the next video.